I'm honored today to be leading a breakout session with my good friend, Hala Furst. I am Sally Kenyon Grant, Vice President of Lucd AI, focusing on artificial intelligence and machine learning, and also co-chair of Cyber Women on Capitol Hill with the Executive Women's Forum. Britt is going to put in the chat the EWF link. If you are a strong woman in cybersecurity and would like support, Executive Women's Forum is one of the largest women's cybersecurity groups in the world. And let's not delay one of the best in Washington, D.C. Here she is. Hala V. Furst is the Associate Director for Strategic Engagement at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, a new role, which is why we are spotlighting Hala today, in the Office of Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention. A very, very important conversation for our theme here today, leading with impact, diversity, and inclusion. Hala, with your successful examples of digital forums in your work on targeted violence and prevention, why is technology so important to your work? If you could talk a little bit about your role and how technology is supporting your efforts and your mission at DHS, that would be phenomenal. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for being here. Hopefully this will be a great session. I think it will be. And thank you to Sally for being here with me. It's always great to have a conversation with her, and even better when we can share it with a lot of great women. So really happy to be here today. So the role that I have in the Office of Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention at DHS relies on technology to do almost everything that we do, because everything that we do relies on technology to do everything that we do. I know that sounds really reductive, but what we're dealing with right now in targeted violence and terrorism prevention is looking at how violent extremism and terrorism leverages different parts of society to radicalize people to violence. And if we're looking at how that happens, so much of it happens online, and it happens through the use of technology. And as soon as there's an emergent technology or an emergent platform, you can be sure that violent extremists and terrorists are going to be using those platforms. So looking at technology as not just an enabler of the bad stuff, but how do we partner with technology companies and learn about emergent and innovative technologies, especially AI and machine learning, that can help us combat this threat, which is pernicious and it grows exponentially because it grows at the same rate that the internet grows. So we work today, in fact, just to give you a sort of look into my day, because my role is in strategic engagement, and that's engaging with our national level organization, association, interagency, international partners to support our prevention work in the building of what we call local prevention frameworks, which are frameworks that help communities combat violent extremism and terrorism that they're facing in their community. So for them, technology is an enabler as well. So a lot of my day is spent talking to technology companies about what they're doing to address the threat, where we're aligned, sharing with them more information so that they can see what potentially needs to be done, and how they can be helpful, or how we can use them as resources, obviously within the bounds of free expression and all of the First Amendment principles that we hold so dear. And working with them to find where are the places of alignment. Without their support and without their work with us, we would be really hamstrung. I mean, we have to be working with technology companies and with the technology itself in order to stay ahead of this threat.
Are there toolkits that you're providing to the communities throughout the country that can help these communities? What does that look like for them?
Yeah, so there's a variety of things. So, and thank you for the question, Sally. We have our digital forums, which you mentioned, which are week-long at this point. They're fully virtual, week-long conferences, resources where we walk communities or sectors through different tools and resources that are available to them around a particular technology threat or resource. And so we will take them. The most recent one that we did last week was on the gaming sector. And so we focused on what is gaming? Why is gaming part of the violent extremist and terrorist toolbox? How is it also a part of the solution? How does gaming encourage protective factors? So we provided them with all of the information, and then we also provide them with resources, both local POCs, who we call our regional prevention coordinators. We provide them with we're updating a lot of our resources right now because our office is just grown exponentially. So we're updating everything, which is great. So we're going to have community awareness briefings, which sort of walks them through as a training how you can use online tools and resources. And we're also building out what we're calling the Think Twice Toolkit, which is going to be a digital literacy campaign to help people sort of put themselves in real life situations where they might be needing misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, or other bad stuff online, and how to address it both for themselves, for their family, for their friends, for their community. So those are just some of the resources that we offer. We have a lot of different offerings on our website, which we can provide in the chat.
Does that include you reaching out to the governors or the FBI agents in those fields? If I were a state leader or a community activist like Vanessa Jacobs, who's working with Amazon in communities, possibly an immigration community, possibly a very poverty-stricken community, possibly a Native American community, where we're trying with Vanessa's vision and leadership how to support the technical aspect with socioeconomic, with helping people. How does, if you're not on the governor's team, how does someone like Vanessa, who's trying to do good work, how does she get involved with an effort to support what's happening in our world today, which looks very different than 50 years ago?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways. One of the key ways I would suggest is by talking to one of our regional prevention coordinators. We currently have 11 and we're trying to get 5 more, so we're going to be up to 16 across the nation. And those are people who live and work in the communities alongside other practitioners, sort of shoulder to shoulder. So they're building out local prevention frameworks. We also encourage you to talk to your local mental health providers, law enforcement. They're part of the solution. They're not the totality of the solution. And that's what a prevention framework really works through, is that oftentimes people think calling the police is their only option when they notice something awry. It's not. I'm not saying that isn't a good thing to do, but there should be other avenues throughout the sort of, as people are walking down this path of radicalization to violence, there should be other off-ramps besides waiting until something escalates to the point where you need to involve law enforcement. So I'd suggest that they talk to our regional prevention coordinator. I'd suggest that they spend some time on our website looking at those tools and resources. We have a ton of folks that they can call in different states. We can also put them in touch, with the state practitioners. There are organizations, nonprofit organizations that are not affiliated with the government that do really good work in this area and can be a resource for them. I'm thinking of Parents for Peace. I'm thinking of FOSI, which is the Family Online Safety Institute. And there's tons of others. We don't endorse any companies because as a government, you don't endorse them, but we certainly work with them on a lot of the things that we do. And so those are, there's a universe of resources. We just need to get the word out. We just need to have better messaging.
And do you think this is going to get into the schools as well? If I were a headmistress, if I were a principal of an elementary school and I heard about this, I mean, it would just be, I think, critical to make sure that parents and teachers and the community, or having a town hall session, knew about your work, Hala. How do you see that forming across North America?
So we work through existing relationships. I always think you should work through existing relationships because you're not trying to come in and say and act as though none of this work has been done before, or no one's been thinking about it, no one's been doing the work. You got to work with the communities and the partners that they already trust. So that's where we work through school systems. We work through national organizations and associations. We work with the Department of Education to find those pathways that are already existing. We look at, like a health-based model, right? A public health-based model of this problem. How are we following those pathways? How are we looking at the problem through that lens? So I know that it's already in schools because kids are spending so much time online, and now they're spending so much time online for school, that the more time you're spending online and in gaming chats and in other places, you're really getting to, it's sort of inevitable in some cases because there's just the law of averages. You're spending so much time in a space. Inevitably you're going to see something. And so we want to prepare students and teachers and parents for when that happens, what to do with the information, how to think about it, how to address it, and to be aware of the risk factors and the indicators so that you can sort of notice if your kid or a kid in your class might be going down a bad road.
I've been thinking in preparing for your talk today, Hala, I've been thinking about, and Melissa, I really want you to jump in here after this thought of mine. I was really thinking about the inception of and the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, and really when we talk about the homeland and the protection and our critical infrastructure and now our people and our places, it's so aligned with that mission of the department. Do you see this as something getting stronger and stronger because of our world and what we're seeing in different communities? And Vanessa did ask about which communities we should help more.
Yeah. So I'm not going to name particular hotspots of terrorism, only because I don't know that it does a service to think about it in that frame. Terrorism, targeted violence, violent extremism, and it's, there's a whole spectrum, right? As we're seeing domestic violent extremism or domestic terrorism, there are different places where that ideology takes hold. And I think what we need to think, and this is because I speak from a prevention lens, we've got to think more about how are we creating universally resilient communities and sectors and individuals so that no matter the ideology and no matter where it's coming from, we're creating resilience to those dangerous narratives. In terms of your question, Sally, about do you mean our mission set is strengthening, or that the threat is strengthening?
I'm just so grateful that the Department of Homeland Security has taken this on and created your role and your team to address communities that we're worried about, whether we have family there or friends there. And that's kind of leading to Vanessa's question. I wish you all the support in the world to be able to achieve your goals so that people can find out what you do. I'm sure there are communities that don't know about your role or your support. And that bothers me a little. Melissa, do you want to jump in here? Just Melissa.
Yeah, no, I was busy sending Hala a LinkedIn note so we could be connected up. But no, this is very fascinating for me, because I do work with crowdsource white hat hackers. Luckily, they're white hat all over the globe. But disinformation is something that I've been really reading a lot of books and trying to figure out how to combat that. So I'm always interested in any tips or tricks or clues that you can drop on where to get information to help with the disinformation campaign that's been waged over.
Yeah. So let me address Vanessa's second comment in the chat, and then I'll move to what you just said, Melissa. So Vanessa, the way that we're prioritizing those communities is by looking at a risk-based approach and what communities are most at risk. And when I say communities, I don't just mean physical location, I mean sectors. I mean groups of people united by affinity or culture or location or school, or there's a whole different way to break. And we have 14 different sectors with 54 different subsectors. So we think about them as sectors, not from a critical infrastructure place, but trying to make sure that the language is more neutral, that it's not just looking at particular community, like a religious community or a location to communicate that. But we look at it through a risk-based lens. So where is the highest risk? Who should we be, who is most at risk? Where is the threat highest? And also where can we make, where's the biggest delta? Where can we make the biggest inroad or make the biggest change? And then Melissa, to your point about the, it just went right out of my brain. Oh, Melissa, can you repeat your question? I'm so sorry.
I was just talking about the disinformation campaign. And
yes, disinformation. Yeah.
Combating against that.
Yeah. So we have within the Department of Homeland Security, we have our, it just got renamed from the Countering Foreign Influence Task Force to the Mis, Dis, and Malinformation Task Force. And they are focused on combating that threat. And we in the prevention space have a piece to play in that as well. And so we're working with them closely. And we're also working with the State Department to sort of build out tools and resources, both domestically and internationally, to address MDM, to address the Mis, Dis, and Malinformation campaign. And then the digital literacy campaign that I mentioned, the Think Twice Toolkit, which we're working on right now, is going to be a resource for the public, for the common person, to better understand the threat and what it looks like, and where it comes from, and what to do about it.
For very simple terms, Hala, for those in the audience that aren't as technical as someone like Vanessa with about 16 certifications in cybersecurity, or Melissa, who's running DC3, thank you for both of your service. For a layman who is trying to understand what's happening on their phone and what they're looking at or what their children are looking at, are we going to see in our future a way to understand if it is not real? As we learn how to see what's on our phone, maybe it's not happening. This scares me a little, just how, I know we're not there, but can we get there? Can we help our communities get there?
Well, I think you're seeing it already with some of the notifications that you see on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter when there's something that is about COVID-19 or about something else that is sort of gets a disinformation tag. And so you're seeing the companies start to look at how to detect disinformation and misinformation, because misinformation isn't intentional, disinformation is. And so it's important to know that sometimes people are sharing something because they don't know that it's false, and sometimes people are sharing stuff because they do know it's false. And so figuring out how the companies can sort of automate that process, but while still protecting free expression, still protecting people from sharing information and getting to share the free flow of information is a critical question right now. I think we're moving in that direction, but in the meantime, we're really trying to educate the public about how to look for the signs of credibility when they're reading something online, so that even if the platform they're on doesn't have a notification or missed it, that they have enough digital literacy and awareness to be able to check that for themselves. So it's a two-pronged approach.
Any thoughts from audience members? Would love to have folks jump in if you like. And then I do have a women's leadership question, just to pull it full circle with you. Would anybody like to jump in and ask Hala or have a comment on the conversation, please?
Looks like Jackie.
Yeah, I'm wondering here, but I'm just kind of curious around some of the things that I see in the media where you have a family member who is very strident in their beliefs, let's say political at this point, and then another family member who's in the other opposite part of the spectrum. And that to me is a very wide gap in some cases. And it can obviously cause like permanent friction in the family unit or the family relationship. And I think it's happening so much more in recent times than certainly when I was growing up. I'm just curious to know, how do we as a community combat that, disparity of attitude and belief, absorption of information? I think getting back to the consumption of information, how can you figure that out in a family unit? I find that very disturbing that people are so fractured.
So I think that's such a good and tricky question, because because what we're seeing is a result of people being able to sort of anonymously share their opinion online and not have the ramifications in real time, right? Or in their face. You say something to your relative at Thanksgiving, you're going to see that come back at you in that moment, or at Christmas, or like whatever. But if you're just sending something online or just saying something online, and you're sort of like living in these parallel universes where you're maybe not even talking to one another, but you're just posting things in your own vacuums. And that's something we're seeing too, that algorithms are driving people into further and further places of separation, because they're based on what we like. And if we like things that we agree with, then we're just going to get put into these echo chambers. So I think the answer is, I'm not saying the answer is necessarily to spend more time offline. Like, I think it's to be a more informed consumer of online behavior and online content. So do things like, talk, if you come across something that doesn't make sense to you, engage with it with your family member and ask questions, rather than just like posting something, in response on your own page or things like that. It's taking the online offline, right? It's saying, you know what? I really had a problem with what Grandpa posted, so I'm going to call him. It's really just about, I don't want to be trite, but it is about being good community members. Whether it's online or offline, it's treating it the same. Where I'm not going to have a war with my neighbor that lives next door to me in this apartment building any more than I'm going to have a war with somebody that has a differing opinion with me online in the next page over. So I think it's just about reminding ourselves that the things that happen online have ramifications to human beings offline. And I honestly think that change is coming. I think a lot of what's happening right now is coming to a head. And I think January 6th really made some people realize that radicalization to violence can happen to anybody in the right set of circumstances or the wrong set of circumstances. And that we all have, as a whole of society, have a role to play in making sure that people don't become radicalized to violence, don't engage in violent means, rather.
Yeah, and I think that starts at a very young age. As we close out today, really moving, incredibly moving. Melissa is chiming in here. Thank you, Melissa. I'm going to congratulate you, Hala, because I have my notes from our prep call, and I'm going to let you pick which one you want to close out with. Hala was discussing her views on women pulling women up. Mentors need to see it to believe it, and learning on the job. So learning on this unbelievable new role and big job of yours, and back to diversity and inclusion, and you are definitely making an impact. Do you want to share some thoughts on women's leadership and pulling women up and mentors needing?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that I'm very passionate about, as Sally knows, and always have been. I think, to what you said about you, I really believe that you have to see it to be it. So you have to see people doing things in order to know that there's a place for you at the table too. And the way that you make that happen is, if you're the first, you bring someone with you. If you're a woman in a position of power, you bring other women to the table with you. You believe in an environment where it's not about winning. It's not about one person having the power, but it's about sharing power and working in collaborative environments and working in collaboration with other people. I think just like technology is an enabler of this work, diversity is an enabler of this work, because we have to have as diverse a perspective on the people doing the work as the people who are targeted by disinformation and misinformation, malinformation, and violent extremism and terrorism. And that's a diverse population too. So we have to have a diversity of perspectives, I think, to make our government reflect our nation. And so for me, that's really important. And I think if we pull people with us, if we don't treat power like a finite commodity, but understand that the more people that we bring to the table, the bigger the table and the better the ideas. I always think about, I'm not like a crazy Hamilton stan, but I do really love the line, tomorrow there'll be more of us. And to me, that's the thing you have to remember, is like, if you're the only person in the room, that's okay. Tomorrow you'll bring someone with you, and tomorrow they'll bring someone with them. And I think the less we treat power like a commodity and more like a currency that we can spread around and increase the power ecosystem, the power economy, the better.
And on that note, bravo, bravo. Congratulations to everybody today, and remarkable as always, Hala. You are just remarkable. And I hope you inspire others as you inspire me. So thank you so much, Vanessa. You were just glorious today. Melissa, thank you for your points. Hi, Jay Coffee. Hi, Donna. Brent, I'm going to have you say a few closeout words. And thank you to everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Just to echo Sally and Hala, first of all, that was absolutely incredible. So much valuable information. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be part of your breakout room. And thank you everyone who joined this event and this breakout room in particular. Please feel free to continue to engage with Future Women in Tech on the website, the action board, social media. And we're just so grateful that you all joined today. And particular thank you to Sally and Hala. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Sal. I appreciate the perspectives.
Thanks, Jay. Take care, Bryn. Appreciate it.
Bye. Thanks,
so
everyone.
much.